Good times and great music at 2NURFM 103.7 as we continue to welcome a lot of our regular folk, a lot of regular segments back for 2023. And I do notice a change with this gentleman who is our Professor of Education from the University of Newcastle, John Fischetti. First of all, welcome. I'm trusting the Christmas, New Year, Australia Day, all of that was pretty good for you.
Fantastic. Let's do it again this year.
I'm noticing a big change.
That I don't have a tie
There's
on?
no tie.
I know.
Normally, comes in dressed $1 million, and today...
Well, if it gets over 30, we can leave the tie off, don't you think?
The
Is
rule.
that the appropriate etiquette?
Absolutely. Well, I'm just in a T-shirt, so I got nowhere to go.
But other than that, I'm okay?
Dropped out.
Other than that, I'm
That's
all right?
fine. First of all, how to parents and carers, the kids are back at school now, so a big collective sigh of relief from the parents, not so much the kids.
Well, and I will say, this is the early indication. We're at day 2 for some schools, day 1 for some high schools, but the early indication from my principal friends and colleagues is that we may have a great year ahead. If you think about the last 3 years, they were all disrupted by that thing we won't mention. In addition to that, that year prior with the floods and the fires, many communities were really taken over by that. So it's been 3 good years since there was a normal start. Last year, all the rat testing and stuff going on, everybody under stress. Teachers feel rested. They actually got a summer. We could breathe with the great weather. I think this is going to be a great year for everyone because maybe everybody got a summer break, which is amazing to say that they actually were able to rest. So that's good. I have a question for you, Mark. If your child came home after day 2 or 3 of school and said, Mommy, I want to stay over at this new friend's house. They had just met in the first week of school. Is the answer different in 2023 than it might have been in 1993 for a parent somewhere in our listening area?
It's a tough one. I mean, it's not something I've ever had to look at. I mean, we've all, even as kids, we all did the sleepovers and you didn't think anything of it. It was like, oh, yeah, I want to go to, friend X's house. But is the vibe generally that perhaps there should be a little bit of a parents should meet parents and everybody be okay with it before we go, oh, hang on, I don't really want my kid going your place. But on the other hand, I don't really want you coming to my place.
Well, one of the realities of new friendships that will emerge this week, which is one of the benefits of school, it might be what we remember most of the people we hanged with and will be on Facebook with in 20 years. The reality is we don't know many of those school community members. There was a time when we knew most of our neighbors, their children, and they were kind of the pod that went to school together. Back in the old days. But now there's a lot of diverse communities mixing together from different suburbs, and maybe people don't know one another. There's some research that I sent you from out of the States, and it's not verified in Australia yet, but pretty similar, I think. That's just interesting for parents to ponder. Is that there's a lot of different family culture and lifestyles that has emerged about what's permissible. And from a very young age, we have children exposed to things in some families that actually aren't permitted in others, whether that's television itself, whether that's the access to the unfiltered internet without a parent block, whether that's what is eating with all the allergies kids have now identified, whether it's parents' own behavior with drinking and or illegal substances. It's a complex set of issues parents have to consider. What do you want your child exposed to and when? And for older children, you get into cars and driving and parties. So it's not just a yes or no answer. It becomes a big worry.
Yeah, well, that's it. We've seen a couple of, where things really have gone wrong, a couple of disasters with motor vehicles in the last couple of years as well with kids. This is a very interesting point, Joe, because at one point everybody was kind of fairly similar, but as you said, now that things are a little bit more relaxed in a lot more households. I mean, household X might be happy for these things to be talked about, exposed to whatever, and you've got another household where it's completely the other way. I'm thinking maybe there would just end up being a natural divide here where kids and therefore their families that have certain value sets would probably navigate, like attracts like, and not in a bullying or shun you kind of way, but these are the people that have got a similar worldview than me. Unconsciously, you just sort of glide to those people and the others will glide to people that have a similar worldview to them.
And I think you're right, Mark, but how do you get that information? So what I recommend to families is you disappoint your child saying, until we get to know that family a bit, let's hold off on that, but maybe we can go to the cinema together, or maybe we can go to the park if it's younger kids, or for older kids, really find a way through sport or another event to just meet those parents and to have a conversation.
Perhaps some of the school
prior.
activities that will come up as well.
That will hold off on that, but still say we can go for pizza, organize an event, get to know the family. You're right about the value system. It does come back to that, doesn't it? But even if there's an older sibling who might be several years older with a younger sibling, what that child may be doing simultaneously in that house could actually be totally abhorrent to certain families. So it's good to get a check of that. It's tough love in some respects because you want the child to belong and feel part of the community. It's one of the fun things, but probably a double check is helpful. I'm equally concerned about the uncensored access to the internet that in some families they haven't had. So even that simple question, because just an innocent Google search for a term that might have double meaning could lead to a traumatic event. And some kids, you might not realize in those families, have access to the liquor cabinet, where there are even exposure to other things. Just you might not be comfortable with that. Trust your judgment as a parent. Don't give in until you're comfortable, because these are life-changing moments that happen. We've all had them as parents, but we usually did it with a safety net of at least knowing those parents were around, which is another issue. Some parents just go off for the weekend and say, see ya. I'd be really uncomfortable if I didn't know that that family was going to be there and there weren't some safeguards to my child's health and safety.
What was it you said, John, about 2023 being a good year? We're just thrown up, but things we all have to consider, I guess, families with kids.
And
but
it's part of that school experience. The overall holistic experience is getting out and enjoying and meeting new people and friends. So we don't want to diminish it, but maybe start with a first phase before you go to the all-nighter.
All right, let's see something for adults as well. All right, let's see where 2023 lands us. Our Professor of Education at the University of Newcastle, he's back again with us. John Fischetti, thanks so much.
Thanks, Mark.
Tireless,
Great to
but
see
thanks
you.
for your time.
We'll work on it.
To a new RFM 103.7.
A broadcast service of the University of Newcastle.